Hello, I'm Dango Rose. Welcome to the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening. The Mountaineer brings you the latest news of the Peak to Peak region, in print, online, through our podcast, social media, and special publications. Now, listen in to the latest news of the area with our local journalists. Hello, I'm Dango Rose, and this is the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening.
And I'm Cynthia Davis. In this week's episode, we hear from Michael Carlson, Library Director with the Gilpin Public Library. He shares a little bit about what's on the calendar for the winter months and other library news.
We hear this week's music mentions from Jamie Lammers, and special correspondent Maryann Rosen will share a unique story about the history of the right to vote in Colorado and the importance of taking part in this fundamental freedom of choice.
And for our final story, Jamie Lammers interviews Charlie White, local musician, writing songs and playing music while fusing genres across prairies and peaks.
But first, some news from your neighborhood.
Save the date for the Nederland Thanksgiving potluck scheduled for November 12th from 12 to 3 p.m. at the Nederland Community Center. Enjoy a community feast with friends and family to celebrate the kickoff of our holiday season.
The annual Mountaineer Photo Contest, Pet of the Year, is open for submissions. That's right. It's time to find those photos of your four-legged friends and submit them to this year's contest. And don't forget your reptiles, fowl, and farm animals. Submissions are now open, and they end November 17th. Winners will be announced in the December 21st edition of the Mountaineer newspaper. You can go online and follow the prompts to submit your pet for this prestigious award and to see the official rules of entry.
As we move into the cooler months and begin to turn up those heaters and light our cozy fires, make sure you take a moment to first check and maintain all of your equipment to ensure it is safe and in proper working order. Check and replace batteries if needed in both your fire detector and carbon monoxide detector, and be sure to double-check ventilation systems and clear those chimneys. Every year, more than 400 people die in carbon monoxide-related deaths due to a lack of ventilation, and home fires almost always double during the winter months.
The Eldora Mountain Resort is hiring for the 2023-24 winter season. If you're looking to join the snowbound team and to enjoy all the perks of working in Eldora's winter windy wonderland, apply online at eldora.com/jobs.
Read more local news and feature stories in print and online at themountaineer.com.
And that's it for this week's news briefs. If you have something to share, you can send requests for submission to info@themountaineer.com. As long as it meets our community standards, we'll be sure to include it in a future episode. Brightwood Music has been serving the Peak to Peak region and beyond since opening in 2008. The full-service music store offers new and used instruments and will even repair the ones you've got. Go ahead and check them out on Facebook at Brightwood Music. Brightwood Music is the best music store with altitude across the Peak to Peak. Now for our lead story, Cynthia speaks with Michael Carlson, Director of the Gilpin County Public Library.
Hi, Michael. Let's start by letting you introduce yourself to our listeners.
Michael Carlson, Library Director here at the Gilpin County Public Library. I've been here a little over 7 years now.
And part of the reason I wanted to connect with you is so you can tell people what's going on at the library this winter.
Yeah, well, we have our usual regular, programs that we do. Every Wednesday we have our story time and craft hour for the little kids at 10 o'clock. That's really popular. A lot of parents bring their kids. It's adult time too because the parents get to interact with each other. We also have a regular adult book club that we do every month. That one's coming up on November 29th at noon. It's a lunch book club. They're reading Circe, this coming month. And then we have our special programs that we're doing in November. The biggest one is we're having the Colorado Shakespeare Festival stop by the library. That's going to be Wednesday, November 15th at 6 o'clock. That's the Shakespeare Festival that's associated with CU Boulder. They're coming up and they're going to do a 45-minute presentation of Romeo and Juliet for us, followed by a talk back with the actors and the organizers of the event afterwards. But yeah, that's going to be, I think that one's going to be pretty special. We've never had them up here before, and they're famous in the area for their Shakespeare Festival in the summer. So I think that's going to be great. And then we have a Social Security discussion on November 7th at 6:30. We're having an Association of Financial Educators coming up, and they're going to get on Social Security, when to take Social Security, how much will I get, how do they calculate. So doing those type of, doing our regular and doing some special ones in there too.
And how about any ways coming up to help raise funds for some of these great programs?
Well, definitely, we have a friends group, a 501c3 group that we fundraise for, and they are going to do a bake sale for us on November 15th from 3 to 6. So people can come by, buy fudge, cookies, different things like that, just to raise money for our different programs. We're doing a lot more programs nowadays, especially in the summer. Bring some of these specialty groups like the Colorado Shakespeare Festival that costs a little bit more than what our budget can handle. So they're going to do a bake sale, I know, in November, like I said, on the 15th, and then they're going to do a couple more right before the holiday in December. So, and people can find that information out on our website and when those are going to be.
And Michael, can you go ahead and tell people what that website address is?
Yes, it's www.gilpinlibrary.org.
Thank you, Michael. We strongly encourage people to go by the library and check out some books and find out more about these great programs happening this winter.
Love is calling. Now we go to correspondent Jamie Lammers, who will be delivering this week's Music Mentions.
And now, for this week's Music Mentions. Head to the Canyon Tavern located at 32138 Highway 72 in Coal Creek Canyon on Saturday, November 11th at 6 p.m. to see J.J. Frazier performing live. Every Wednesday at 9 p.m., the Diner Bar Ned hosts a karaoke night. Be sure to head to 121 North Jefferson Street in Nederland to check them out for yourself. Head to the Gold Hill Inn, located at 401 Main Street in Gold Hill on Friday, November 10th at 8 p.m. to see Brandywine and the Mighty Finds performing live, on Saturday, November 11th at 7 p.m. to see Jason Hicks and Amy Finders performing live, and on Sunday, November 12th at 7 p.m. to see the Greg Shokett Trio performing live. Head to the Gold Hill General Store, located at 531 Main Street in Gold Hill on Friday, November 10th at 8 p.m. to see Charlie White performing live. Head to Howlin' Wind Brewing, located at 51A Main Street in Rollinsville on Saturday, November 11th at 4 p.m. to see an Old and in the Way tribute. Head to the Jamestown Mercantile, located at 108 Main Street in Jamestown on Thursday, November 9th at 7 p.m. to see Swing Aggregate performing live, and on Friday, November 10th at 7 p.m. to see Zazania performing live. Head to the JKQ Barbecue, located at 200 Gregory Street in Blackhawk on Friday, November 10th at 6 p.m. and on Saturday, November 11th at 5 p.m. to see Boys of the Town performing live. Head to Kathmandu Restaurant, located at 110 North Jefferson Street in Nederland on Friday, November 10th at 5 p.m. to see the Foggy Tops Bluegrass Band performing live. Every Sunday at 5 p.m., Knotted Root Brewing hosts Jazz Sundays. Be sure to head there at 250 North Caribou Street in Nederland to check them out for yourself. Most Sundays at 4 p.m., the Millside Inn hosts an open jam. Be sure to head there at 44365 Highway 72 in Ward to check them out for yourself. And finally, head to the Very Nice Brewing Company, located at 20 East Lakeview Drive, number 112 in Nederland on Friday, November 10th at 6 p.m. to see Ceramic Llama performing live, and on Saturday, November 11th at 5 p.m. to see Concrete Feedback performing live. Did we miss you or your performances? Want to submit your music listing in the Peak to Peak area? Do you have updates to your business or to your performances? Please call 303-810-5409 or email info@themountaineer.com to be included in the next print edition or the next podcast of The Mountain Ear.
Thank you, Jamie. Now let's drop in with special correspondent, Maryann Rosen, who shares a unique story about the history of the right to vote in Colorado and the importance of taking part in this fundamental freedom of choice.
With Election Day upon us on November 7th, and with the presidential election coming up in a year, it seems to be a great time to talk about the relationship between democracy and voting, why voting sets democracy apart, and why it is seen as such an important piece and the cornerstone. Voting gives everyone the ability to participate in civic life, a voice in their government in the most fundamental of ways, by deciding who governs, a voice in choosing the elected officials whose decisions impact our lives, families, and communities. Elections help ensure that power passes in a peaceful manner from citizens to their elected representatives and from one elected official to their successor. As John Lewis stated, the vote is the most powerful nonviolent tool we have in a democratic society. It was and is seen as so important that for a long time, white male landowners wanted to keep the vote to themselves, and some people to this day attempt to make voting more difficult for various constituencies. In 1789, voting rights were left up to the states, with most limiting those rights to the aforementioned white male landowners. Some states also required that a voter be Christian. Interesting, because a lot of the founding fathers were deists and wanted a more secular government. It took 39 years before all white men were given the right to vote, and another 42 more with the passage of the 15th Amendment before Black men were allowed the privilege. Women were not extended the right to vote nationally until 1920, when the 19th Amendment was added to the Constitution. It wasn't until 1964 and 65, respectively, that barriers to voting were somewhat taken away with the removal of the poll tax and the passage of the Voting Rights Act. Voting is seen as so significant that all of these groups fought for the right to exercise this freedom. It is somewhat more easy to understand the importance of voting when it comes to local, state, and national legislative elections. These are the governmental bodies who have a more direct impact on our life. They create, pass, and enact laws, and in the case of the national legislature, they confirm who sits on the judiciary branch of our government, who then decide whether these laws are constitutional. These two divisions, along with the executive arm, also provide a system of checks and balances so that one person cannot yield total power. These elections are one person, one vote, and can be won or lost with the slimmest of margins. Thus, the value of these votes is readily seen. When it comes to the presidential election and the Electoral College, the influence that our voting has is more complex. How electors from the college vote depends on the state. Some states proportion their votes based on the percentages of votes that each candidate receives, while other states are winner take all. 32 states have some laws regarding faithless electors, those who would try to vote for someone other than the candidate that they are supposed to. However, 18 states do not. Out of 58 elections held, 5 resulted in the popular and electoral college votes not matching. Because of this, there have been calls for the dismantling of the Electoral College altogether. 2 of the elections where the candidate won the popular vote, but not the Electoral College, were in 1824 and 1876, and they both were decided by the legislature, as no candidate won in the college vote either. In both of these cases, the candidate who won the popular vote was not handed the presidency. Another reason why the legislature is extremely important. The remaining 3 elections where the candidate won the popular vote but not the Electoral College vote were in 1880, 2000, and 2016. In those elections, the person winning the Electoral College and thus the presidency lost the popular vote by 90,000, 500,000, and 2.9 million, respectively. The 2000 election was an extremely close one in that the president-elect lost the popular vote and only won the Electoral College 271 to 266, with 270 yes votes needed. How the electors in each state cast ballots is related to how the states voted, and so it still seems to matter regardless of how one feels about the Electoral College. Considering the consequences of voting, another significant event occurred in our state of Colorado. On November 7th, in 1893, Colorado became the first state to enact women's suffrage by popular referendum, Wyoming having done so in their original constitution in 1869. The first efforts to provide Colorado women with equal voting rights failed. Adding women's suffrage to the state's original constitution in 1876 was considered too radical. In 1877, a year after Colorado was granted statehood, an all-male electorate once again struck down a suffrage referendum. In 1890, Wyoming became a state, and the U.S. Congress let stand the state's 1869 territorial constitution, including a woman's right to vote. It was a sign to Colorado women that now was the time for a new suffrage movement. And in 1893, the suffrage question for white women that had failed 16 years earlier was now passed pretty solidly by popular referendum. Granting women the right to vote in Colorado was not done for all magnanimous reasons. Giving women the freedom to cast ballots was seen as a way to attract more women to the western frontier and also a way to hopefully cancel out legal immigrant votes. Whatever the reason, it was a step forward for some women and one fought hard for. In this story and short summary, one may see why voting is important on all levels. Its weightiness on democracy, why groups fought for this privilege, and why Colorado allowing women to vote 19 years before the entire nation did are all fundamental and essential to our country and lives.
The much anticipated Taste of the Peaks is available on newsstands across the Peak to Peak. Be sure to pick up a copy to find your favorite local eatery. And don't forget to share it with friends, because a meal share is always better than Betty Crocker. You can also view the guide by going online to themountaineer.com. And for our final story, Jamie interviews Charlie White, the genre-bending singer-songwriter who's slated to perform at the Gold Hill General Store on Friday, November 10th.
Hello, my name is Jamie Lammers, and this week I'm bringing on another musical guest. Do you mind introducing yourself real quick?
My name's Charlie White, and I'm a local singer-songwriter. I do a lot of solo performances, and I'm also in a couple bands. My first band is called Bear Hats. That's kind of a acoustic, jammy, kind of bluegrassy. We have a flute player, which kind of sets us apart, I guess. And then the other band right now is called, we're trying to figure out a new name, but right now we're called Old Toby, and that's kind of a rock, funk, jam band, more electric.
And I hear you're performing at the Gold Hill General Store very soon.
Yep, November 10th. I've been playing there about once a month, coming right out of COVID. I started there.
So what got you started in music in the first place?
In middle school, I played alto saxophone in the jazz band, and I think that's where I first caught the bug. That's where I realized I really loved playing music. I loved improvising probably more than anything. And then after that, got my first guitar. I was in 6th grade, and then I really fell in love with that because I love being able to play chords. You can't do that on a saxophone, so I really enjoyed that. And then when I was about 15, started writing songs and experimenting with singing. I was never a natural born singer. It's something I've had to really work on and learn how to do over the past almost 20 years. Yeah, I just really liked stepping into the space and creating and writing songs. It's therapeutic at that age, still very therapeutic. And then in high school, kept playing a lot and started an indie band. I really loved Modest Mouse growing up and that whole vein of music. So we played a lot around Baltimore City. We were just a high school band, It was cute and fun, but it was a good learning experience. Then in high school, when you're thinking about, okay, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? Yeah, I was well, this seems like a pretty clear choice. I really love doing music and I just want to keep getting better at this. So I started taking jazz guitar lessons from Peabody Preparatory in Baltimore. Mainly studied jazz with a really talented teacher. His name was Steve Yankee, but he's a very straight ahead bebop jazz player. He's very strict and he forced me to have a lot of really good technique when I was around that age. After that, applied to Berklee College of Music in Boston, got accepted. Went, right after high school. I didn't know what I wanted to major in. I didn't know what path I really wanted to take with this. I thought I wanted to major in songwriting because that's really where the bread and butter was for me. But I took a songwriting class and realized I hated it. I hated having someone tell me how to write a song. I hated studying the formula to write top 40 hits. I was just I can't do this. I have my own process about writing songs and it's important that I keep that what it is. I felt that at that time. I'm happy I made that choice. So I spent a few semesters at Berklee. My head wasn't there. My heart wasn't there. I was going through a bad breakup at the time and flunking a lot of classes. So I decided to take a step back from college, move back to Baltimore, try to figure out more of a clear path for my career as a musician. So I moved back to Baltimore, started teaching for the first time out of a little music store there. Found that I really, really enjoyed that. Worked a few other odd jobs. It was really turbulent time in my life. And then starting to gig a little bit for the first time in my life, kind of steadily. So I was teaching a little bit and gigging a little bit. I was ooh, I like this. Let's just keep on doing this. I could do this the rest of my life and be happy. So I decided to go back to Berklee, mainly focus on jazz guitar when I was there. Ended up graduating with a degree in professional music with a focus on jazz guitar. So that was just a style of music I was very involved in at the time and wanted to get better at. Because it was kind of clear to me if you can play jazz and hang out in that world, you can play a lot of other styles of music. So I studied a lot with a really prominent jazz player there. Throughout all this time, I'm studying jazz, but I'm writing songs constantly and writing a lot of duds throughout this time and kind of throwing them out. And a lot of songs aren't really sticking. Moved out to Colorado after I graduated with my partner at the time. It took a few years really to kind of feel like I got my feet established and, I got like a steady footing here in Boulder. Working in a restaurant for a few years. That was really tough. I wasn't gigging a lot. And it got to a point where I was just I need to start playing shows. I've put so much time into making this art. So maybe 4 years ago, started gigging pretty regularly around Boulder and started to make a mission to try to gig as much as we can and get better at this and cut our teeth. Then during COVID, all the gigs went away, which was tough. So tried to be productive during that time. Had a friend of a friend who owned a recording studio out in Chicago. So was able to fly out there and record an album in 3 days. 13 songs. I pretty much played every instrument on that album. They were very long days, but we got it done. The goal of that album, it's my first first official recorded album that's on Spotify. The main goal of that was just promotional material. I didn't really record that album with the goal of, I just want everyone to listen to this and for the world to hear it. That album was like, all right, I need some songs so I can get to the shows booked pretty much. And it did that, which was great. And it really helped push things along. My schedule got a lot more steady when it came to the gigs. But then also, there's some people really enjoyed it on top of that, which was great. There were some musicians and some really well-known bands that have gotten their ears on that album, and it's continually helping to push my career forward. So that was all electric. I'm mainly an electric player. That's what I studied the most. That's where I'm comfortable. But when I first started writing songs, my roots as a songwriter are like acoustic, folk, indie. I think that's always at my core. But it took a long detour from that and mainly just played electric guitar for a decade. Moving out to Boulder, it's really easy to get a gig out here if you play acoustic music and you're a bluegrass fan. I started falling in with the bluegrass crowd here in Boulder. I started going to the open picks a couple years ago and met a lot of my best friends through the bluegrass picks in Boulder. Big sense of my community here in town I owe to those musical gatherings. So over the past few years, have been mainly focusing on acoustic and just trying to get better at acoustic because it is a different monster than electric guitars. So I've been writing a lot of songs on acoustic. The new band Bear Hat, that's all acoustic with a bluegrass influence. Really excited about that project. That was started between me and my friend Dave. He ran the bluegrass picks in Boulders for years. He's a mandolin player. During COVID, we started rehearsing a lot together. And a year or two later, got a bass player. His name is Clay Bedell. He was the original bass player in the Al Capones, and he's been in a lot of groups over the years. We have a banjo player, Josie Rosales. He's also another Berkeley guy, mainly a guitar player, but he's playing banjo in the band. And then we have a flute player, ripping flute player. His name is Josh. And just having a lot of fun with that band right now. All those guys are like my brothers, and we're just having a lot of fun. And it's breeding really good music, and there's a lot of momentum behind it. We're working on recording an album right now, which I'm kind of spearheading. It's a lot of work. I'm hoping by spring we'll have a full-length album of all original material out. And on top of that, I also have a new solo album that I'm starting. It's going to be all acoustic. Might have a few other instruments in there, like violin, banjo, flute. So starting to work on that. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at this winter. It's just going into recording mode. It's very intimidating. But recently, I've been writing a lot the past few months, which feels great. It's nice when you can catch that wave of creativity and just start spitting stuff out. And for me, it kind of tends to happen in waves sometimes like that, where there's periods of time I just can't write anything that I like. And then right now, I'm in a time where I'm happy with the things I'm creating and I'm kind of in a flow. I use songwriting for self-therapy first and foremost. That's what it's there for. I try to write for me. It's been great over the past few years to have my music so well received, and that's where I'm at right now. I have my solo career that I'm working on. I have this band Bear Hat that I'm writing for, and then Old Toby, which I'm also writing for right now, and that's more electric funk group, which is nice. That style is also pretty ingrained in my songwriting, so it's nice to have a band to write for like that. So yeah, a lot of avenues. Working on hiring like a booking agent right now. I'm a social media person, trying to get into some festivals here eventually and trying to gig more. I have about 12 students right now, which is a good balance for me. But in the next few years here, I'd like to be teaching a little less and just gigging more. So I guess that sums it up.
What sticks out to you about the songwriting process in general?
The more successful songs I've wrote, I went into it with more of a question rather than a statement. I think the more successful songs I find myself going into and asking the question, how am I feeling about this? I know I feel something and I know it's strong, but I don't really know how I feel about it. And I think going into it more open-ended and trying to learn from the songwriting process about what you're going through rather than I feel this way and I'm going to tell you about it. Whenever I've written a song like that, there's something missing to it. It feels like there was maybe not as much growth that happened through the process of writing that song. And I don't want to tell you something that you and I already know. It might be an analogy for it. But yeah, I think just going into it with more of an open mind and an open heart and using it as a tool just to figure out more about what I'm feeling about something or where I'm at in life. Because I think so many times we convince ourselves that we feel this way about this and this is how we are right now. And really, if you meditate or you do some art and you kind of like step back and dig deeper, you find out that you really feel this way about it. And I guess along with that, with the stepping back out of the way, the more successful songs I write, I think the more it is that feeling of just get out of the way and just like let the song write itself, let it do its thing. And there's some really magical, profound moments with that, the creative process. It's like, oh my God, did that even come from me? I didn't know I could think of that. And I think I'm reaching more and more just for that all the time when I'm writing. Is that feeling of something greater speaking through you, to you, with you, which is something that I've experienced since I was 16, playing guitar and writing songs. But I think through a lot of my 20s, it was a very turbulent time. I was dealing with a lot of depression, anxiety for a very long time. It was very heavy. I think in the past couple of years, I've been reconnecting with that aspect, I guess the more spiritual, transcendent aspect of music, more heavily just reconnecting with that, which feels like kind of a full circle point in my life right now. But yeah, I guess, those two things, connecting with something higher and going into it with more of a question than a statement.
And what do you love most about live performances?
I love the feeling of stepping into a place that maybe feels a little chaotic. And then after you play some music, it feels like it kind of brings the place together. I really love feelings like that. For me, performing has always been a good tool just for interacting with people in general. Being a performer helps me better communicating with people. So I love that what I do forces me in front of a lot of people and forces me to have to talk to a lot of people. It definitely helps with a lot of social aspects of my life. I also really love the feeling when I've moved somebody, when someone gives me, if I've had some compliments and some gratitude expressed to me, where if I have the space to hold that, that's so much gratitude. I'm grateful for that. It really just helps me feel like what I'm doing is having an impact. And I think that's important, that feedback loop. I also like the variety of different venues. I play a lot of bar gigs where I'm background music and maybe just a second thought. No one's there really to listen to me. Or, on the contrast, I might have a gig where it's dead silence. You can hear a pin drop and everyone's just watching every single move you make. I love having the variety of that. I know a lot of performers, they hate having bar gigs where no one's there to listen to you. You'll play an original song. It just goes over everybody's head. But you play that classic rock song, everyone's like, yeah! I don't mind that. There's an aspect of that I really love. I love going into a place where, yeah, you didn't come here to listen to music, but I'm going to grab your ear. Then you're going to be listening to music and then we're going to be doing this. So it's a fun little game when I step into a gig where it's like, no one's really paying attention to me. I don't even know if they really want me here. And so I like that. I like seeing, whose ear can I grab? What song can I play that I think they might like? So I'm all about bringing, wherever I'm at, bringing that energy level up. So if that's the music they want to hear, that's what I'm going to play. To me, that's more important than whatever selfish artistic ambition I have.
What do you hope that audience members take away as a result of coming to your shows?
I hope that they hear something original, that they like, well, I never heard something like that before, but also familiar that they can connect with.
Is there anything else that you want to add about your upcoming shows or anything else?
Bear Hat is playing at the Gold Hill Inn on December 1st.
Thank you so much to Charlie for coming on board and joining us for the podcast. If you want to see him perform live, you can catch him at the Gold Hill General Store, 531 Main Street in Gold Hill on Friday, November 10th, 2023 at 8 p.m.
That concludes this week's episode of the Mountain Air Podcast, where everybody's listening.
Visit our website at www.themountaineer.com to read more information about today's guests. Pick up a copy of this week's print edition of The Mountaineer at newsstands all across the Peak to Peak. I'm Dango Rose.
And I'm Cynthia Davis. Thank you for listening.
You know, up here in the mountains, things are weird.
And that's it for our show. Subscribe online to get more access to more news, weekly updates to our community calendar, and a link to our YouTube channel by visiting themountaineer.com. Be sure to use the coupon code PODCAST when subscribing for a 10% discount, only available to our listeners. If you are in the local Peak-to-Peak area, be sure to pick up a print edition of The Mountaineer at a local business. I'm Dango Rose. Thank you for listening.